Every generation has their love triangle. Are you Team Jacob or Team Edward? Do you want Allie to marry Lon, who can provide everything? Or Noah, who can offer nothing except a perfectly renovated home to her exact specifications? Do you want to see Cher marry a man she's barely talked to? Or his brother, who she's only yelled at? The Summer I Turned Pretty follows in these familiar footsteps. Should Belly, full name Isabel Conklin, get with the eldest brother, who makes her feel fireworks? Or the youngest brother, who almost made her feel a firework? There are plenty of online debates about who loves who more, how freaky it is to switch between two brothers. Those conversations should be left to the professionals, Trin Lovell. But critiquing this summer house? That's my job. So let's hear how Belly describes this house in the first 30 seconds of the show.
My family's been going to Susanna's beach house and cousins every summer since I was a baby, since before I was even born. All year long, I count the days until I'm in that house.
Let's break that down as if we have never seen the show before. Which, by the way, if you've never seen the show before, you can still watch this. There aren't any real spoilers.
My family's...
Okay, so that's her older brother Steven, and her mom Laurel. They have a dad, but I don't think there will be any purpose for me telling you his name. They're divorced, and he is politely not in the picture much unless needed for a plotline.
Been going to Susanna's beach house.
Susanna is her mom's best friend, and if I was writing the show, it'd be a little bit more than just friends. Susanna has two sons around the same age as Belly's brother, Conrad and Jeremiah. Although Susanna is married, her husband also has absent dad syndrome, therefore not requiring you to know his name. The house was inherited from her side of the family.
And cousins every summer.
Yeah, so the name of the fictional beach town in Massachusetts is Cousins Beach. So the kids that grew up together, like cousins, go to Cousins Beach and kiss. Now that I've got your interest, let's see what Belly has to say about the house.
All year long, I count the days until I'm in that house.
Oh, this is going to get good.
The summer house is made up of lots of things.
Yes, things. Tell me more. Maybe columns, window styles.
The beach.
Okay, so now we're on a beach.
The swimming pool late at night.
You know, a pool feels more like an amenity, not necessarily architectural, but I'm sure we can...
Movie nights with the moms.
I love that. I like watching movies. Tell me about the room.
But the boys. The boys most of all.
So I'm starting to notice that I think that me and Belly might have slightly different priorities here. Maybe she can really focus on the boy stuff, and I'll take over the house descriptions from here on out. So I guess now I'm going to explain this house to you. I hope you like that animation because I did pay for it and therefore you're going to see it a bunch. Okay, so this is the house. It looks like if you crossed the house from Something's Gotta Give with a little Simsy blue Suburban. It's hard to say which side is the front and what is the back, but when Belly first arrives at the house, in the driveway we see two front-facing gables with these decorative trusses in them. There's a few columns on the porch. It does seem like there's a garage over there, but it never comes up, so maybe that's just where the dads power down until they have a purpose. This whole side of the house is kind of forgettable unless you have a thing for circular driveways. I don't. Now for the back side, which if you were a boat would be the front side. Yeah, this house is on the water. And to take advantage of that water view, this house has many, many windows. Shed dormers in the roof, 3 French doors next to each other, and bay windows with double the amount of windows that usually you would see. That deck looks more like a porch since a lot of it is enclosed by a roof. The pool is back here as well, which is the site of many a belly flop. It's a joke on her name, and it's also a hazing ritual. The siding on the house is shingles, and according to the location manager, this was very intentional. It had to have the cedar shake on it because Han wanted the Cape Cod Northeast look. But why would you need to give it the Cape Cod Northeast look if it's in Massachusetts? Shouldn't that just automatically happen? You guys, this house isn't in Massachusetts. It's in Wilmington, North Carolina. Less outer Boston, more Outer Banks. But the reason they wanted that shingle look is probably because Cape Cod and beach houses in the Northeast have a bit of a reputation architecturally. These are shingle-style houses. It was popular in the 1880s and 1890s in coastal towns. The style began and reached its highest expression in the seaside resorts of the northeastern states. Fashionable summer destinations such as Newport, Cape Cod, eastern Long Island, and coastal Maine have numerous architect-designed cottages in the style, many of which survive today. The key attribute of these houses was their irregular shapes and minimal ornate details, but the most important part is the wood shingles that were used continuously on the walls as well as on the roof. When you look at the features on these houses in this book, the architecture of the American summer, the flowering of the shingle style, put together in 1989, you can see just how massive and meandering these buildings often were. Some of them are resorts, some hotels, and many are private residences. It's hard not to notice their size, their shingles, their porches. In his introduction to this book, Vincent Scully, writes that the shingle style, in a way, was part of the colonial revival, which started around the same time, but kept going for much longer. It was its liveliest manifestation, and it got along very well and for many years with the white-painted classical details that characterized the colonial revivals later. Vin Scully, not the baseball commentator, Vincent Scully, the architecture guy we're talking about, he then goes on to compare the shingle style with Impressionist paintings. They both were being created around the same time, and he sees escapism as a big part of both. Elsewhere, I have noted its visual affinities with the shingle style, but the larger point might be a social one. Impressionism was a middle-class painting par excellence. Its practitioners abandoned the overt social concerns of earlier 19th century French painters in favor of overwhelming material sensation and the peace of the suburbs. Perhaps not an especially admirable course of action in a social sense, but a fact, and one within which great painting was clearly possible at the time. The shingle style has much of the same content and base. True enough, it can have a wonderful darkness in it, a rough animal presence, and something wild of the mountains and the sea. Yet it is, in the end, an architecture of suburban relaxation and country joys. It reflects an American middle class grown rich after the Civil War, prepared to enjoy itself. He is writing about this at the end of the 1980s, seeing sort of a revival of the shingle style. And he compares what he's seeing in 1989 with similar circumstances as the 1880s when the style first emerged. Its renewed success in the late 20th century taps and expresses a similar source and reflects a comparable historical moment. There is a lot of money around, but almost no governmental assistance for low-cost housing, and not much return for developers in economical buildings. Hence, the present phase of shingle style is not normally creating the common buildings for which it is ideally suited, but expensive private houses and condominiums instead. So the shingle style, in a lot of ways, is about escapism. And what have you been doing while watching The Summer I Turned Pretty? Yeah, me too. So this idea of expensive private houses being a beautiful distraction is a lot like the plot of The Summer I Turned Pretty. Sure, Belly and her family aren't really the rich ones, but she spends a quarter of her year in a beautiful house on the beach, treated like a long-lost daughter. She has her own bedroom specifically decorated for her. It's got beautiful toile wallpaper and an iron bed frame and beautiful bed linens, and everyone in the house loves her. And when you head downstairs, the fantasy does not end, especially in the kitchen. Now, I mentioned that this house reminds me a bit of the one in Something's Gotta Give. Maybe it's the double gable, or maybe it's that I think that Nancy Meyers, the writer and director of that film, created the blueprint for rich, successful woman's huge but somehow cozy kitchen. Nancy Meyers didn't just write and direct Something's Gotta Give, but also The Holiday, It's Complicated, and The Intern. And previously, I did a whole video dissecting the kitchens with a little checklist. And I do believe in reducing, reusing, recycling, so I want to see how Susanna's kitchen stacks up to the Nancy Meyers approach. Open shelving, check. Kitchen island, check. Subway tiles. They are slightly different tones of gray, but the size and the shape, check. Marble counters, check. Fancy stove. I mean, look how many knobs are on that thing. Check. They even have a pot filler next to the stove, which I don't even think Nancy Meyers had even gotten to yet. Fancy fridge, check. There is more than one sink, one on the island and the other in front of the window. Pendant lights, check. White ceramics. I would say the majority of them are a bit more colorful, but I see plenty of white plates and white bowls. So, check. Windows and natural light. I mean, there's a bay window, and it has double the windows that a normal bay window would have. So, yeah. Dining room table? Check. Bowl of fruit? Yes, they even interact with it sometimes. Glass door cabinets? Check. Ingredients in glass? Of course. A little bit too big of a kitchen? Check. So, this kitchen got a perfect score. None of the original movies where I got the idea for this checklist even scored that perfectly. And I do think, in a way, that it's sort of intentional. Jenny Han takes romantic media seriously. She clearly has reverence for the genre. The entire show is filled with references to It Happened One Night, Casablanca, Bye Bye Birdie, The Notebook. And when I think more about the plot in the third season, something's gotta give too. This show, and I guess this kitchen, makes sense to be an embodiment of some of the biggest successes in the genre. If we go back to that beginning intro where Belly says,
My family's been going to Susanna's beach house and cousins every summer since I was a baby. Since before I was even born.
According to Reddit, and Google's AI tool because it stole it from Reddit, Belly from the show was probably born in 2006. And in the story, it suggests that this house has been here for even longer. In season 2, they allude to Susanna having grown up in it. Over the years of looking at houses, I may or may not have gotten kind of good at looking at maps and GIS. That's Geographical Information Systems. So when I looked up Wilmington, North Carolina satellite photos, I may have found imagery for every couple of years from the early 2000s. Does it make it more or less creepy that it took me under 10 minutes? Maybe don't answer that. But according to these, this house isn't that old. It barely would have been around when Belly was born, and definitely not when Susanna was. And I'm not doing this as some factual gotcha moment. We're all guilty of lying. Belly and Conrad lie about their feelings, but mine's more of a lie of omission. Because previously I might have made you assume that this house was the Shingle style, because I talked about it so much. But this house isn't the Shingle style. It wasn't built in 1880. It wasn't even built in 1980 during some type of renaissance that Vincent Scully was noticing. This house seems to be finished sometime after 2006. And although it has some details that we might see in common with the Shingle style, it also has decorative trusses, which are more stick style. This house feels like a composite of colonial details from multiple styles, with lots of features that are hoping to make you think it's older and more classical than it really is. In Vincent Scully's conclusion, he talks about what the Shingle style had become. It did not, I think, so much die out as in dwindled, impoverished form, slide below the conscious interest of the profession into the general mass of vernacular building. And just so you guys know, vernacular buildings are ones that are built outside of the academic world of architecture with less awareness of the formal styles. So similar to how a Gothic building are considered this, and a vernacular Gothic building is something like this. He goes on to say that the pieces that make up these styles live on in a Frankenstein-like way. So it all seems to break up into its original components towards the last, but persistent echoes of its life-giving plans continue to appear in it, often awkward, heavy-handed, and out of scale, awaiting regeneration in a new day. I kind of think that the house in The Summer I Turned Pretty is a bit out of scale, and it's not my dream seaside mansion. If I was going for something with shingles, it would probably look more like this, or if I was being modest, like this, or also this one. There's a lot of good options. But if you set this show in one of those houses, it would break it. Because those houses are old, they would create history that the space existed within. And I think, rightly, The Summer I Turned Pretty is about living in the present moment. I mentioned at first that this house reminded me of a Sims build, and people have done a great job recreating it on the gallery. But also like The Sims, this show doesn't feel like time goes by within it. If you've ever played The Sims, your first generation will have all the same computers, styles, video games, haircuts, books available to them as their great-great-great-grandchildren. The Summer I Turned Pretty is like that. It exists outside of time and space. All the little interior details that feel classic, the iron bed, the general coastal colonial style, makes it ageless. It seems like every movie they watch is from before color television. It feels outside of the current moment because of all of its references to the classic things of the past. But somehow, despite all of that, it's breathing new life into a genre that rarely gets investment. What The Summer I Turned Pretty has is a creator like Jenny Han who seems to care, who is building a career off of loving love stories unabashedly. And it turns out that makes for pretty great escapism. Jenny Han has created a perfect little house that has been a lovely space to spend 3 seasons, and soon a movie. If you've made it this far, I have 2 videos I think you might like. There's one about the houses in The Notebook, and then there's the Nancy Meyers one, which you already kind of got the idea of. I have a Patreon, but I'm also adding my bonus content here on YouTube with YouTube memberships. I'll be adding more of my Patreon archives on there. I know some people like to watch things on their TV and you can't on Patreon, so I hope this solves that for you. This month, for the bonus video, I will be chatting about The Summer I Turned Pretty and my favorite things from the show. It's a bizarre list. Thank you all for being here. You're the best.